We are live.
You got to go, Michael. She's got it in the chat. We're live.
I'm Michael Krasny, and let me welcome all of you to this National Philanthropy Day. It's my privilege to be hosting and emceeing a panel of distinguished philanthropic leaders who here in the Bay Area community have certainly demonstrated over the years extraordinary skill and abilities, which you will hear about in the course, I hope, of this panel that we have set for you. Before we begin, and again, it's my privilege to lead this discussion with these four exceptional leaders, let me say something about the increasing diversity here in the Bay Area. I know that there are many of you who are joining us from all over the country, but diversity has not only become a kind of lodestar for many philanthropic organizations here in the Bay Area, it has been, I think, true of California in general. And it bears at least some consideration that the US Census Bureau, which released some statistics recently about diversity, has told us and informed us and revealed to us, if you will, how much diversity has increased just over the last, year that the Census Bureau statistics have come under scrutiny. The nation's most populous state has right now the largest Hispanic population, and it also has, so let me just put some of these figures in front of you. California's white population has fallen, just to show the changes, which are quantum, by nearly a quarter between 2010 and 2020, while its Asian population grew by a quarter. And it has the largest Native population of any state in the nation. And so all of those things really speak to the fact that we have an important service here that we're providing all of you by having four representatives of different ethnic groups who are also leaders in the philanthropic community, talking to us about philanthropy. And let me tell you who is joining us. I'll say good morning to each of them and give you a little background biographically about who they are. Sarah Lomelin Joseph, the CEO of Philanthropy Together, which is a global it's an initiative actually to diversify and to democratize philanthropy. And actually before she held this position, she served as Senior Director of Philanthropy and Philanthropy Acción, which is a fund that serves the underserved. And Sarah, we welcome you. Delighted to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael.
Let me also introduce Seth Butner to you. Seth is well known here in the Bay Area, as Sarah is, and as all of our panelists are. He's immediate past president of the board of Port Commissioners. He's also the founder of the Oakland-based Horizon Beverage Company, which is a beverage distributorship, which actually he sold back in 2015. And that allowed him to found his charitable foundation, the Sester Butner Family Foundation, which is dedicated to funding educational efforts and opportunities for underserved African Americans and Hispanic youth in Oakland. And Seth, delighted to have you with us. Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Michael.
And also we have David Lay with us. David is actually also had a business, a very successful business, which he sold, Consumer Products Sourcing Company, sold back in 2003, David? It goes back a ways.
2003, yes.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that right. And then in retirement, you have been very active. We ought to let listeners know and viewers know in nonprofit work, which is focused for the most part on sustainable funding models for community-based organizations. He's currently the board chair of the Chinese Performing Arts Foundation and also heads up or is actually vice chair of the Chinese American Community Foundation. And David, glad to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Also want to introduce to you Chairman Greg Saris, who chairs the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. He's also Tribes Economic Development on the Tribes president of that board, has been very involved in Native American philanthropy for years and oversees all of the tribe's business interests, including the Grayton Resort and Casino. He's an educator. He's also an award-winning writer. He did a collection, which I'm quite familiar with, and I'll give him a plug here because I think it's well worth reading for those of you who, like me, are interested in good literature. Collection of short stories called Grand Avenue, which was, in fact, indeed adopted into an HBO miniseries. He's also co-executive producer of that of that series with Robert Redford, and is presently at work on a biography documentary, which he's executive producer of Joan Baez. Chairman, good to have you.
Thank you, and good morning, Michael.
Good morning to you, and good morning to all of you. And on this National Philanthropy Day, with this wonderful panel of exceptional leaders, I want to begin actually by talking about what has changed and getting kind of a synopsis in a couple of minutes from each of you. And if I may, Sarah, I'd like to begin with you. And by a synopsis, I mean the priorities have changed because the statistics have changed, as I indicated, population numbers and so forth. So over the past, well, if you will, 12 to 18 months, what would you like to really let us know about that has changed the most? We've been through the pandemic, of course, and that must figure in. But I'm interested to get your thoughts, and then we can go and hear from the others on this distinguished panel. But not only what's changed, we have a lot of philanthropic leaders and people involved in philanthropic organizations who are joining us in this Zoom today. So maybe you could also, in sort of talking about change, if you would, Sarah, talk about how those changes apply to really improving and advancing in fundraising. Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Michael. I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I think, as you mentioned, right, the demographics of the state have changed. There are nearly 16 million Latinos that live in California, and Latinos were responsible for 2/3 of the growth of the population in the state, according to the 2020 census. And with that growth, comes political power, right? There are over 8 million Latinos eligible to vote in the state. And Latinos continue to be underrepresented in the electorate. And why am I saying this? I think we need to shift from immediate relief to long-term power building in the community. There has been considerable emphasis or immediate philanthropic response to the pandemic, to the wildfires, to other disasters that have disproportionately affected the Latino community. But we now need, in my opinion, to build for long-term recovery, for sustainability, for power, and because momentary, optics in funding offer just temporary relief, but are not a long-term solution for the grassroots nonprofits that exist in the Bay Area and in the whole state. I think we have always been about, investing in grassroots Latino-led nonprofits, but it's now more important than ever, especially those small nonprofits that are working on, civic engagement, helping Latino entrepreneurs, health and wellness, because the pandemic came and these small, tiny nonprofits had been doing work, overworked the whole time, and the funding is not getting to them. Because usually the small-led grassroots, small Latino-led grassroots nonprofits are invisible for big philanthropy. So that's, where community philanthropy or people power philanthropy or giving circles that's my passion. That is what I do every day. Come along to support these small grassroots nonprofits.
Sarah, thank you. And let me go right to you to pick up on something that Sarah said and get your thoughts on it. She's talking about long-term, looking more toward the long-term. Is that what you're doing and advocating as well?
Well, we have always indicated, basically my nonprofit is really about education. And that stands no matter what happens. But I think the pandemic has shown us that it kind of shifts somewhat because of the access that Sarah was talking about, the access to everything else that you need. For instance, here in our community here, we had a situation where not a lot of the kids had access, the Black and Latino kids had access to computers and the internet and everything else throughout the pandemic, which was the only way we could communicate. So it became important to make sure we raised the level of possibilities there. And I worked with Oakland Undivided and some of the nonprofits here locally to try to raise the number of of access that they have. We actually did quite successfully. About 35% or 40% really had access to internet, and we raised that to 95% of the kids that were locally. But little things like that change, but one thing will remain the same is education, I think is the key that we always have to have.
Well, congratulations on that number, 95%. That's impressive. And kudos to you and your group. David Lay, let me go to you and let me ask you to sort of respond to this question from your perspective of how things have changed and what you really recommend in the nature of those changes and how they've had impact.
Well, for us, the last 2 years is the anti-Asian racism. That is the big gorilla in the room. A recent release survey from Columbia University of Chinese living in New York shows that 58% are mentally impacted. They're afraid to go out. They're always in the alert. And this is for a population, a huge huge percentage are immigrants from countries where they don't have to deal with this. It's very safe in countries like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and China. So this is very hard for them to adjust. But the good part is the response has been very strong. I think Asian Americans been left out of the conversation in philanthropy. We've been getting very small percentage, like 0.5 of 1%, whereas the population is about 7%. But now there's awareness that it is a model minority myth, that we have this diversity, we have a lot of needs within the Asian American community, and I'm seeing a lot of young people coming back to the community asking how they can help. And this will be a longer term impact. We have the next generation of activists coming in.
That's heartening, and thank you for that, David. In fact, maybe we can do a segue to you, Chairman Saris, and ask about the next generation, but also talk about what Sarah brought up, first of all, thinking more in the longer term as well.
Yeah, first of all, Michael, California, again, has the largest and always has had the largest population of indigenous people, but it's a very diverse group. You have your urban Indians from other states that have moved here, and Los Angeles, for instance, and Oakland have the largest urban Indian populations in the country, but we're often invisible, and you don't see us, and we're often the folks who need the philanthropy or need the help the most. We are economically in those areas the poorest, but there have been great changes, and I'm kind of segueing back, if I may, Michael, to the changes here, and that is with some tribes that have casino resorts and have generated significant amount of income. But here's the catch. Each of those tribes that have casino resorts are sovereign nations. And so when you deal with them or approach us, it is as if you're approaching France or Canada, because we each have our own policies about how we give money or what we give money to and what's important and that sort of thing. So it's important for the audience to understand that. I jokingly used to say nobody knew there were Indians in California until there were casinos. But remember, not all the tribes have casinos, and all the tribes that have casinos are not wealthy. So we have to break down these myths, and the tribes that do have financial opportunity are sovereign nations, and they have to be approached as such. They have their own policies about philanthropy and giving.
That's an important educational piece of illumination for the public, because they really don't, they think casinos, they think you're all so well heeled as a result of the casinos. And they don't know between the sovereign and the non-sovereign. So I'm certainly glad that you brought that to our attention. Let's get back, and I'll go to each of you on this in a different sense, perhaps. But Greg, I'd like to hear your thoughts about inspiring your own community. I mean, getting a passion aroused to a degree that you know you have solidity and you have solidarity behind you.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I joke, Michael, and everybody, and think they keep me around. It's been 30 years, but as we've gone from living on grants and being very poor, with 80% of our young people dropping out by ninth grade, to now, of course, 100% graduating from high school and students in Stanford and UCLA and so forth. What I've continued to remind my people as a leader is to remember the values of our ancestors who got us here, and that was giving and sharing. So when we decided to do this casino resort, we decided right away this had to be something that would benefit Indian and non-Indian alike. We're all in this world together. So I reminded the folks of that, reminded them of our ancestral beliefs, our indigenous beliefs, and how to use those in making decisions about how we were going to negotiate our business, how we were going to treat our team members that work for us, and what we were going to give to the community. So with a focus on environmental stewardship and social justice, we move forward. And I
going back to the roots, really, is what you're saying, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Does that work for you, David? Is that part of your modus operandi, if you will?
Yes, well, I work with a lot of existing nonprofits in the Chinese American community, and I support their programs. And we're trying to get out of just being in Chinatown. We're looking at other Chinatowns and other communities. In the late 1960s, the Asian community was working quite closely with other communities, with the Third World Liberation Front, the protests at the universities for ethnic studies. We saw this coalition and solidarity. We're seeing less of it today. We're trying to get back to that. And one thing I keep in mind that few people look at today is how do different groups work together? We see this hate, but how do you get different communities come together? My answer is contact hypothesis. This was studied in the 1950s by a person named Gordon Allport. So if you look into contact hypothesis, it is you need three factors to get people working together and feel truly integrated. First is you have to have contact. You can do this with forced busing, meetings, parties, but that's not good enough. You have to have equal status contact. People have to feel equal coming to making these contacts. And lastly, to have a common goal. And I've been using this since I started working with young people in the late 60s. And it's not a hypothesis. I think it actually works. So I suggest everybody go in and look at contact hypothesis.
It's also good to hear Gordon Allport's name. I'm writing a book now, and I am alluding to him in a couple of passages. And I was thinking that people still value his work. Well, it's good to hear that you do. Let me go to you on this, Sess, and talk a bit about how you get people inspired and how you get passion out of those.
Yeah, I come at this more from a business perspective because I ran my business for so long. One of the things we always try to do is I would encourage the audience to get individual companies solidified behind it. If you have the CEO for this individual company solidified about giving back to the community, then that's the most important thing. For instance, when I ran my company, Horizon Beverage Company, I would always make sure once a year we'd shut down the whole company, and we'd take that opportunity, have everybody still come in like they were working, but they didn't have to go to work. We'd go down to Alameda County Food Bank and we'd do our work and give them back to the community. I did that for a couple of reasons. The reasons are to make sure I instilled in all of our employees that we're a part of a community. You got to give back to the community that you serve in. And if you do that, then we work there for half a day and come back and then go over our objectives for the next year or something. So I didn't waste the whole day. It wasn't like giving them a day off. It was giving a day of service. It was the day that we had to do it. I think what you need to do is inspire the companies, the head of every company to do just that. I got a good friend of mine, Sean Marks, that used to own a company here named Give Something Back. And that's what he did all the time too. And I was kind of inspired by that. I really think the connection though, in the end, to local nonprofits that the companies need to get associated with so that they can have a real purpose for what they're trying to do.
Thank you, Seth. And Seth Butner says, go to the CEO. So I'm going to go to a CEO. That's Sarah. Sarah, maybe you can expand on this, particularly in terms of going to sort of people who hold power or hold wealth in the community, as opposed to paying the most attention or equal attention to the grassroots people who have always been sort of shouldering a lot of the onus of organizations like yours.
Well, Michael, thank you for that question. And I want to talk a little bit about my background, right? Before being at Philanthropy Together and before being at the Opportunity Fund, I spent 8 years at the Latino Community Foundation based in San Francisco. And, the idea of the Latino Community Foundation is to inspire philanthropy by and for Latinos, right? So how do we inspire our own community, as the chairman mentioned, to give, to go back to the roots, to think about our values as a community. So in my time there, the way we used to, the way we engaged the community, because a lot of times Latinos are seen as the recipients of philanthropy, but not as philanthropists, right? Was to change that whole narrative and say, hey, we are here. We are generous. We support our own community. We support our own nonprofit organizations. And if we're going to be asking for support from other communities, we need to show up for our community. So with that in mind, we started the Latino Giving Circle Network. So to create this culture of philanthropy, engaging, everyday people and saying, you don't have to be, Bill Gates and be a millionaire to be considered a philanthropist. You can be 23 years old, a Latino going, starting your career in technology or in a restaurant or anywhere. And you can come along people that share your same values, and you can pick a cause and you can support a grassroots nonprofit. And with this in mind, we started the first Giving Circle back in 2012. And right now, the Latino Giving Circle Network is the largest Latino donor network in the country, with regular people that have given away more than $2 million and have, changed that whole idea of who gets called as a philanthropist. And the beautiful part of this, and coming to your question about how we engage people, that have a lot of power, is that we had around the same table people from so many different backgrounds, from, early 20s to their 70s, from people starting their careers to CEOs, CFOs of big companies, but everyone sharing the same vote, one voice. So the byproduct of these Giving Circles, apart from the financial contribution, was all this networking, mentoring, building community power, starting new businesses and relationships that at the end were maximizing and leveraging funding, not only for the foundation, but for so many nonprofit organizations in the Bay.
Well, your enthusiasm is infectious, and you speak so glowingly of what you've been able to render. Just a quick follow-up question. You mentioned 20 to 70. Are you having as much success, and are you as optimistic about that younger generation in the 20s?
Actually, yes, Michael, because I feel that is uh, young people are eager to do something, but they don't want to be passive. They don't want to just, write a check, make a donation. They want to get more involved. And we're seeing that, in young people really when I remember in my time, right? Like you would apply for a job and I didn't care that much if the company was being very socially responsible. That was, back in the early 90s, right? But right now, young people really care about social impact in their work and they want to do something about it. So I feel that in the case of philanthropy, the more that we can offer young people ways to engage, to learn about not only issue areas, but to create like deep relationships with the nonprofit leaders, the more we're going to engage them.
Thank you, Sarah. Let me go back, if I may, Chairman Saras, to you. I'd like to have you maybe focus for us on a real success story that people can learn from, but also, let's not call it a failure story, but something that really went awry or that you learned an important lesson from because, shall we say, it was a setback.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Michael. A couple success stories are partnerships, and I know we were talk about how partnering, and one of the things that the tribe has done is created partnerships with our parks, a regional park where Tole Regional Park here in Sonoma County with the regional parks, where we co-manage the park and we create a board where we're 50-50. So we have equal partnership in how that park's going to be used, but most importantly, in the restoration process of the natural environment, so that we are both supporting the restoration of the natural environment, but have influence in how that's going to be done and should be done. Using that model, another great example, if I may, is with the national park, Point Reyes National Seashore. We just signed a partnership agreement, the first of its kind in the country, for our tribe to co-manage a national park. Where we will be taking care of the elk and all of that sort of thing there and have equal power. So it's not just giving the money, but having influence when we give the money, so that our values and what we value, again, environmental stewardship and social justice, that those things are in place. Where we learned how to do that well is we were often giving money to organizations that we found out are very good organizations, but ironically, environmental organizations will take money because they need the money from organizations that cause the problem. And we didn't have any, so you have a situation where you have the fire truck on fire, so to speak. And so we, again, learn from those situations to make sure to vet out very carefully that if we weren't in a partnership, that the organization was not taking money from organizations that harm the environment or exploited labor in any way. Those things were important. So we learned how to do that by not being so careful early on.
And now you're going to have to learn how to manage a national park. There's a lot on your shoulders. Let me go back to you, Cess, and we're talking about successes and lack of success and certain perhaps stories that you can tell. But Greg mentioned the word partnership, and talking about how philanthropic organizations succeed has a lot to do with collaboration. Could I ask you to talk about how that's worked for you, and then maybe you can tell us about something you learned from a thing that went awry or went south?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that, Michael, because for me, with my individual foundation, it's about partnering. That's all it's about. And you got to make sure you fret out the companies, the nonprofit organizations that are successful and are doing things. One of the things I found with many of the organizations is they were having a rough time raising the money. They get the money, then they got to pay their rent, and they got to pay their employees, and little of the money would actually get there to the people. And I thought I needed to do something about that. And I think that's what I I try to do with each organization that I do look at. I just made a reference to a group here called Hidden Genius. You may have heard of them, I don't know, but they were fighting the difficulties, and they found themselves getting out of the rental space that they had. And I suggested to them that what we do is raise a big campaign, get the money and buy your own building. That's what we need to do, is to buy our own building and insist that what you do with that is have an opportunity to house other nonprofits in that organization. Other African-American, Latino nonprofits would house in there too, so that we can reduce the burden that they have to find sometimes on paying rent, getting space, because it's expensive to exist here in the Bay Area. And we needed to work on that then also. So I think you collaborate with different organizations that end up finding out what you want to do as well, and you can become a big success in doing it in that way.
That's very useful. Thank you for that, Seth. Can you maybe pinpoint just quickly for us something that, like I say, went south or didn't work that you learned from?
Well, some of those organizations don't do quite as well as you would think, and that's what happens because you're trying to work with everybody, and everybody has a good heart. Everybody wants to do well, but in some organizations, I don't want to mention any names, but some organizations, it happens that way, and you give the money and it goes for naught because they're seeking to just exist as an organization, and they spend all their money on the organization, nothing gets to the people. That's what you got to look out for, is to make sure that they don't spend all the money on themselves.
That can be a really tough trial and error. I mean,
yes, it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention any names, but I've had a lot of success in life, but I've had my failures too. So sometimes it happens.
Well, thank you for that. And David, let me go to you on this. Talk maybe, if you would, about collaboration and so-called partnerships. And some of your, well, maybe give us a success story and a story that you learned from because of non-success.
Well, there are a lot of collaborations. You work with organizations that are better in certain things. They can do it better than you can. So you need them for that. And part of what I do is try to orchestrate different organizations to get together to tackle a project together, a vision that is larger than any one organization can tackle. Then you need to bring in the others. Part of it is getting people really engaged. Like at the Asian Art Museum, when I first joined their board in 1997, I think I was one of just a handful of Asians on the board of the Asian Art Museum. And it was looked upon as a white organization for socialites. So, but today, the majority are Asian, and it helps on the fundraising side. We've had 2 capital campaigns since I joined the board. One was completed in 2003 when we moved to the Civic Center. We raised about $130 million, and half came from the Asian board members. And recently, we just completed another one, a little over 100 million. And again, more than half now is contribution from the Asian community. So if you get people involved, they normally will do the their share and do the philanthropy from their side.
David, forgive me, you get the people involved who can donate a great deal. What do you do about grassroots? What do you do about people who aren't so wealthy?
There are plenty of opportunities for the grassroots, and we have programs. We have about 50 nonprofits in Chinatown. This is 24 square blocks. We have 50 nonprofits and about 200 other clan organization, district association, guilds, and so on. So we have plenty. and all of them are doing programming projects. And so there's absolutely lots and lots. And if you don't have money, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities.
Reaching right back to you, Sarah, if I may. Only got a few minutes left here, and I hope we can cover some more. Then we're going to go to questions from those who are, your questions are welcome, those of you who are with us this morning. But Sarah, this idea of the giving circle, talk a bit more about that. If you could just elucidate it for those who are really with us this morning who may want to know more about it.
Yes, Michael, thank you. And you know, I'm going to talk about giving circles, and that includes like the whole collaboration part of it, right? Giving circles are basically a group of people with shared values that get together to create change, right? It's a lot of people think like, okay, is this like crowdfunding? And it's not. It's similar, but it's not. In crowdfunding, you go, you donate, you forget all about it, right? A friend of yours asks you to donate, you don't even remember what you donate for 2 days later. In the case of a giving circle, you create community. You, you know, you get people together. These people, you know, talk about their own values that, you know, they hold dear in their lives and that guide their giving. And they find the common values of the group. With those values in mind, they decide on a cause that they want to support. And for example, you know, it can be, you know, early childhood education. Let's get, you know, support STEM programs for Latino youth in San Jose. Let's do this, like so many different causes. With that, the group does the homework of finding those small grassroots organizations that are doing work in the issue area that the group wants to support. And the group gets together to evaluate, you know, 2, 3, 4 nonprofits and decide as a group where the pool donation is going to go. So that way you have multiplied impact, not only in terms of dollars, but we always, you know, talk about giving circles of donating the 6 T's. So it's time, talent, treasure, testimony, ties, and truth. So how can you go beyond the dollar? How can you, you know, support the community in a deeper way? I'm talking about, you know, the young people. We saw at the Latino Community Foundation some young folks that were invited to be part of these giving circles, and it was the very first time they were giving, right? They were saying like, thank you for inviting me. It's the very first time someone asked me to give. That a couple of years later were joining the boards of those nonprofits that they were supporting, or they were, you know, taking a Saturday to help a nonprofit with their database, or, you know, going to a rally or registering people to vote. And then, you know, some of them running for office. So they're like mini incubators of civic engagement. We call them the civically engaged philanthropists. So I love it.
Well, we're going to go to Q&A now. Thank you, Sarah. Unless maybe a quick roundtable. Anybody want to add anything about, just for a minute or so before we go to questions that are coming in, about cohesion and keeping your supporters and keeping, you know, the wide range of people who are involved in your organizations philanthropically together in a cohesive way? I know it's a big question, but maybe somebody may just sort of piggybacking off of what we heard from Sarah. Anybody want to add to that from your own perspective? If not, we can just go to the, yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, you gotta make sure everybody does what we say in Rotary is service above self. If you make sure that you get the people involved, that they doing the service, it doesn't matter about how much money they got. It matters more about how much service you're giving to your community. And I particularly like what David had to say about having your own community, help your own community. Make sure we rise up and for the African Americans, even if you don't have any money, you got to make sure you give back to your community, and service above self.
a very important anthem to, I think, live by. Service above self, indeed. Questions are coming in, and before I go to the questions, anybody want to add anything, David or Greg?
I would say exactly what we heard here. For me, it's important, whatever I and the tribal council decide to do regarding philanthropy, that there's buy-in from my tribe. Again, we're a sovereign nation, and for me, it ends up being political. I could do something that could make them angry and I won't be in office. So again, it's really important that what the decisions that we make are community decisions. And again, the community supporting the community is what's underlined constantly.
Well, let me go to the first question. David, I'll go to you with this first question that's come in. Question phrased as following: it's clear what philanthropy can do to drive change, but what can fundraisers at your organization or professional fundraisers do to advance the causes that matter to your communities?
Yes, you do need professional help if you want to raise a large amount of dollar. One thing I found very effective in asking people to donate is to donate for grants writer, donate for the development department to help a organization organize themselves. So people like to do that. They want to leverage their money to help an organization, and you do need these professionals to get you there.
Maybe we can talk a bit about professionals. We've been talking about collaboration and partnerships, but finding the best professionals, get some wisdom from each of you on that. Maybe go to you first, Greg Saros.
One of the things that we've done is we've often consulted with attorneys and so forth to vet out what we're doing. So to see, to make sure that that our values are, that we're going to support what we value. And again, it's using professionals in the field, asking people, government folks, and our legal to always vet what we're doing. I think that's really, for us, important.
Can you get people pro bono often because you're a philanthropic organization?
We haven't, but we pay our attorneys to do what they do. So I guess that's...
Thank you, Greg. And Seth, can I get you to opine on?
Maybe they should give it to you pro bono. I think that's what you should seek to try to do, is to make sure you can try to get some pro bono help from there. But the professional fundraisers are critical to achieving our objectives. And so I would ask this group or our audience to make sure you seek us out. I think many of the small nonprofits don't have an opportunity to use a professional fundraiser. And that hurts them in their ability to raise money for the local community, for the African-American and Latino community right here in Oakland. I want those professionals to come here to help us raise the money and to reach the tentacles that they have for other organizations that can help us out. So if I was to say anything to the audience, I'd say, hit me up to make sure I point you to certain organizations that need some help raising funds, and I'll pay for you to raise the funds for them if you can do a good job. And don't be one of the ones that do a bad job for me and I can't figure out what's going on then from there.
That's well said. And you got to get the finest and most professional people you can,
Yes.
most effective people you can. Sarah, you want to shed some light on this as you see it?
Yes, I totally agree with what Seth said. And I would say to the audience, because I know all the audience are fundraisers, is don't make assumptions. I think that is the most important part of it. Like, don't assume who can or who cannot give, because you are going to, find yourself with a lot of surprises. David touched on something extremely important and gave light to the lack of funding that goes to all of the communities that we are representing here, right? He mentioned that the Asian community gets less than 1% of philanthropic dollars. The Latino community gets 1.1% of national philanthropic dollars. The Native American community is the same case, the Black community. It's ridiculous. It's infuriating. And you as fundraisers should get, mad about this. And I feel that the more light we can show to people and say, hey, there is a lack of funding in these communities. When people hear these statistics, that clicks. Because, we are a diverse country. We are a very diverse state. And it's in all of us to make sure we have more equity. So go ask everyone and show light and bring light to the inequity in funding in the small grassroots nonprofits that are led by people of color.
Thank you for that. Very strongly and I think effectively worded. Appreciate that, Sarah. Appreciate all of the comments that have been made by this terrific panel we have here. And let me go back, David, to you for a second question here, and then we'll hear from the others on this as well. This question there says, Greg mentioned a partnership with the national parks. Have the other panelists had success with working with local, state, or federal government to advance your mission? And Sarah just touched on that a bit. So David, let me go to you and find out from you not only what the professionals you work with, but do you work with government and what levels of government?
Well, I personally have not worked with government except with the Asian Art Museum, which is owned by the city. But other nonprofits that I work with in the communities, they are, for instance, Community Youth Center, CYC, they now operate the playground we have in Chinatown. Because when the city ran the playground, they usually have one playground director there to pass out the equipment, balls and so on, but not really doing programming. But the CYC, since they've taken over, there's programming from preschool to seniors at the facility. And also Chinatown Community Development Center, the city gave their housing projects in Chinatown for them to run. And they know the community much better. They're there, and they've been organizing the tenants for 25 years. So they know the tenants, they know the community much better, and they're able to handle some of the challenges much easier than the city can. So these collaboration can be very, very successful and very good.
And many thanks, David, for that. Precis, I'm going to go to you again, Cess, on this. Government, and maybe you could talk about some of the local and state organizations you've worked with. Yeah.
Government, that's a hard one sometimes. Because they want to watch where they give the money and where it's going, and they try to balance everything out, and it's a little bit more difficult. I insist on going to the community. The community is the one that needs to raise the funds, and the community is the one that can make the difference in their own community. You got to take responsibility for your own community and get it done. I sometimes stay away from local, state, federal government opportunities because I think it's mired in politics and everything like that. But it's important I think, for the sense of pride for our local community to take responsibility ourselves and get the partnerships working.
And thank you for that, Cess. I'll go back to Chairman Saris and Greg. The questioner began with citing your mentioning of the partnership with the national parks. Can you maybe not necessarily elaborate on that, but talk again about how government ties in for you?
Well, it's important when it comes to American Indians. As you know, for those of us who are from federally recognized tribes, we are wards of the federal government to this day. And there's been nothing since the Holocaust, where a group of people is identified by a number. All of us who are enrolled members of tribes have a number, government federal number, and our enrollment number. And so we are tied inextricably to agreements that we've made with the government and so on and so forth. That for those of us who have the means, now we can create partnerships where we're empowered with these government entities, with the federal government in particular, where we haven't been before. So now the federal government, in many cases, needs us as much or more than we need them. So that's going back to the top of our discussion. That's
a great position to be in, huh?
Yeah.
Not always, but yes. Yes, as we say now, as we joke in a very crass way, if we can't get environmental stewardship and social justice, we'll just buy it. So,
yeah, often at a high cost, but thanks, Greg. Sarah, we'll wrap this up with you, and then I have one quick question for all of you. Want to talk about government role in this as a question I wanted to find out? Sarah?
Well, as David mentioned, I personally have not, been connected to government in my role as a fundraiser. But I know the Latino Community Foundation does a lot of work with the state government and try to, with this network of Latino donors to really push for, policy change. And, following up on the chairman's words, like that is why, investing in the community, in the Latino community has matter, and it's so important now more than ever, because public policies, right, from housing, education, health, everything are decided by the people in elected office. And we are missing an opportunity as Latinos because we're not showing up to vote. Only, half of 69% of Latinos are eligible to vote, but only half of them show up and vote. So there's such a missed opportunity there. So again, going back to SES, I think the community needs to get stronger to be moving the needle on the other side.
Exercise your franchise, as we say. When I was in public radio before I retired, I used to end all the coverage we did of elections by saying that. Exercise your franchise. I think that's what you're saying, Sarah, and thank you for that. Also, I'd like to maybe conclude here by, I only have a few minutes left, but Sarah and then the rest of you can maybe share a bit about what inspired you to get involved with community serving organizations and philanthropy in the first place. A little personal here, Sarah.
Yes, well, I am originally from Mexico City. I have been here in the US for 25 years. I'm an American citizen now. I got my citizenship about 2 years ago. And I voted for the very first time last year. So for me, it was a matter of responsibility of, my 3 children were born in this country. This is my country now. And again, right, it's if I don't show up for my community, if I don't show up to give back, how can I ask other people to do it? So I feel that, for me, it was that. And I'm sorry, I kind of get emotional all the time about this. But yeah, just.
Well, let me congratulate you on not only becoming an American citizen. One of the most moving events that I was involved in was hundreds of people being sworn in as citizens. And I just was privileged to MC that, but also for all the really fine work that you've done. And I'm delighted to have had you with us this morning. And let me just hear, again, how you got involved. Chairman Saris, you want to talk about that briefly for us? What inspired you and World of Philanthropy?
Thank you, Michael. And I go back to the one word that Sarah said, responsibility. I figure that if my ancestors went through all that they did to get me here, I owe it to them to continue that legacy. And when the opportunity came up to do this business and to have this sort of thing, and to create a platform that would benefit Indian and non-Indian alike, I had to do it. And, we have Spanish to English classes, English to Spanish classes. We help folks with their citizenship here. And as American Indian people, we kind of laugh. We've been here since millennium, and we laugh at some of these immigrants complaining about more recent immigrants. It all looks funny to us. We're all here together, and we have to think that way all the time. So
Your people have been here longer than any of the immigrants or any of us who were go back generation, even the people on the Mayflower and so forth. Always delighted to talk to you, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us in this panel today and for all the work you do. Much obliged. Can I go to you, David, next?
Sure. For me, as legacy, I'm third generation YMCA. My grandfather in 1921 came from China to the U.S., spent 2 years to raise $25,000 for the YMCA in the village, Taishan, and that YMCA is still there. So I'm a legacy of my grandfather and my father, who was also very active in philanthropy.
This is transgenerational, and it's really
Yes.
inspiring to hear. So we thank you, and thank you for all the great work you've done. Seth, to you.
I like David. It's from my family. My mother taught me as a wee little one that you had to give back to the community that you live and work in. She used to have me take a little, I'd take it on my little sled to take some dinners to everybody at Christmas time, for Christmas and Thanksgiving time when we have it now. And she'd always put one special plate on there for me to take to the little homeless guy in my community. I would kid around and say, oh, that guy, he's not doing anything. We don't need to take him in. My mother insisted that if from you, of the grace of God, you could be there yourself. So you make sure you take one to Bracksmith down the street, and everything else will be all right. From that, I always wanted to give back. And then that enhanced it even more when I, back in the late 90s, I was running for mayor, and a lady by the name of Oral Lee Brown over here in really inspired me when she, you probably have heard the story of her. She had a class of little first graders that she took to the whole class, and she guaranteed them college education if they stayed clean, stayed drug-free, stayed out of trouble, and grew up and being responsible adults. And she inspired those kids, and she followed them all along in going around. And that inspired me to say that if she can do that for one class, we can do this for the whole community. So why don't we try to do that? And hence, the Oakland Promise was created.
Well, gratitude to her and to your mother for inspiring you. And gratitude to all of you, really, who have served your communities, continue to serve your communities, and have really a great deal to be proud of in all that you've achieved and all that you've accomplished. And it's really been my privilege and pleasure to be here with you and to hear what you have to say. And I hope that you did indeed, not only hope that you have, but I know that you have, shed a great deal of wisdom this morning from your years of experience. And there's a great deal to learn from all of you. And I hope that all those in the philanthropic community who are listening will indeed glean important lessons from what you've had to say. And I hope you will all continue doing the extraordinary work that you have done, and that you will be remembered for long after your organizations have had their days in the sun. And I hope that those days in the sun will continue for most, if not all of us. So thank you all for your work, your good work. Thank you all for this panel today. Thanks to Leftwich, who's behind the scenes here, to Kathy Rose and Normie Panetta, who've done extraordinary work, and also to Tim Whalen and Nicole Brown from the National Philanthropy Day Garrison. Thanks to everybody who has joined us today, and onward and upward. Keep raising for good causes. Keep your communities alive and vibrant, and good luck to all of you. I'm Michael Krasny.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
On September 29th, the Golden Gate chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals hosted a small reception on the rooftop garden of the Fairmont Hotel. The gathering was a chance to present the 2021 National Philanthropy Day honorees with their awards. Congratulations to all.
Welcome to National Philanthropy Day. My name is Elizabeth Warner, and I'm the chapter president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals Golden Gate chapter and managing director of Plowshares Fund. It is such a pleasure to be with you today as we celebrate our 2021 honorees and the incredible impact that they have had on the many communities, local and global, that they serve. You know, this has been a pretty spectacular year. We have delivered educational programs to 375 members on topics like decolonizing wealth, small shop fundraising, and managing and fundraising during COVID. We launched a brand new IDEA Fellowship with 8 extraordinary fellows. This program aligns deeply with our values of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And it provides leadership and training opportunities for fundraisers of color, LGBTQ+, and other underrepresented communities. And as you'll hear throughout our event, our 2021 NPD honorees continue to lead our communities through the myriad of challenges that COVID presents. From the Eat, Play, Learn Foundation to the New Breath Foundation, from the students at Amador Valley High School to our Lifetime Achievement honorees. This is an outstanding group. I'd like to offer my deepest thanks to our volunteer board of directors and the entire National Philanthropy Day committee for putting together another stellar virtual event. COVID may keep us from celebrating in person, but it can't keep us from acknowledging the work that you all are doing day in and day out. You know, AFP Golden Gate was founded in 1971 when it was called the National Society of Fundraisers, and we've proudly grown to be one of the largest chapters in the global association, and we've inspired other neighboring chapters to form. So this year, our theme is celebrating 50 years of inspiring Bay Area philanthropy. And I hope that you too are inspired by the work and the deep roots of philanthropy that our honorees represent. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our NPD co-chairs, Louise Gregory, Tim Whalen, and Nicole Brown.
Thank you, Liz. I'm Louise Gregory, the Executive Director of Development at the UC Berkeley Library. It's a pleasure to be with you today, even if we are virtual again, because National Philanthropy Day is an important opportunity for us to celebrate and honor local philanthropists who make such an important impact on our community and our world. I now introduce you to Tim Whalen.
Thank you, Louise, and hi everyone. I'm Tim Whalen, Chief Development Officer at Save the Redwoods League, and it's a pleasure to be with you today, celebrating National Philanthropy Day 2021. We wouldn't be here today without the generosity of our sponsors, who've supported this event and in doing so support the professional development programs and opportunities the Golden Gate chapter provides throughout the year to fundraising professionals across the 5 Bay Area counties that the chapter serves. First, we'd like to acknowledge our 50th anniversary sponsors: Fred Levin, the Shenson Foundation, Rosalind Croman Swig, Arthur Rock and Tony Remby Rock, and Leftwich Event Specialists. We'd also like to recognize our platinum sponsors: Lois De Domenico, Asset Management Company, Pitch and Kathy Johnson, John and Marcia Goldman Foundation, and William H. Draper. And we'd like to also acknowledge our gold sponsors: Dolby, CCS Fundraising, Cook Silverman, Evelyn and Walter Haas Jr. Fund, Marin Health Foundation, Save the Redwoods League, and Wells Fargo. And thanks also to the many other supporters of National Philanthropy Day this year who are recognized throughout this program. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Nicole Brown. Nicole?
Good afternoon. I'm Nicole Brown, the Director of Individual Philanthropy at 826 Valencia, and I'm honored to be your third co-host for National Philanthropy Day this year. We have been celebrating National Philanthropy Day for 36 years here in the Bay Area, and we are so honored today to have Michael Krasny serve as our MC. Michael's is a voice we all know, admire, and recognize. He was the host of KQED's Forum program for over 18 years. We're so honored to welcome him to our virtual stage. Michael?
Thank you, Nicole. I'm honored to be your host today as we recognize and pay tribute to the meaningful contributions that philanthropy and those active in our own philanthropic community make to our lives, to our communities, and to the world. And this year, the COVID-19 crisis has made this work more important than ever. So we thank you for joining us to honor the individuals, organizations, and businesses in the Bay Area who, in the face of a global pandemic, generously give their time, talents, and resources for the enrichment and benefit of our communities. Without further ado, let's get right into it. We begin our program with the Hank Rosso Outstanding Fundraising Professional Award, which is given to an individual who sets an outstanding example in the world of fundraising. And no one does that better than our very first awardee, who also happens to be my colleague at KQED. I'm pleased to announce that this award goes to Georgie Kelly, KQED's Vice President of Development. She leads major planned and foundation giving and has led KQED's Campaign 21, raising more than $139 million to transform KQED's programs and renovate their headquarters. She has also led KQED's fundraising partnerships with NPR and PBS. Georgie celebrated her 20th anniversary at KQED this past spring, and she says that she'd like to see more early and mid-career fundraisers stay at organizations for longer terms, maybe not 20, but how about more than 2.5? She feels that her long tenure at KQED has contributed to her success and has enriched her life. Please welcome Georgie Kelly.
Hello, I'm Georgie Kelly, Vice President of Development at KQED. Receiving the Hank Rosso Outstanding Fundraising Professional Award is extremely exciting, heartwarming, and humbling. Thank you. This award should also recognize the amazing boards and extraordinary teams I've had the good fortune to work with throughout my 30-year career. I was inspired to be a fundraiser as a senior in college. While training volunteers at Planned Parenthood in Colorado, I was asked to help raise money to hire a professional fundraising coordinator. I wrote a grant and a couple of really great fundraising letters, and honestly, I was so much better asking for support than I was a volunteer trainer. So when I moved to San Francisco in 1990, I decided it could be my career. Honestly, I feel so very fortunate to have a profession that is my true calling. I've stayed at KQED for nearly 20 of those 30 years because I deeply believe in our mission to inform, inspire, and involve. But it is more than that. Our work in development is about relationships, and I know that much of my success has come from working with some of our major donors for decades. I would like to encourage early and mid-career professionals to consider the value of staying longer in your jobs. It truly makes a difference for your own fulfillment and for your organization's success. In closing, I suspect one reason you are recognizing me at this moment is because KQED has just completed our historic Campaign 21. My friend and predecessor at KQED, Tracy Eccles, received the Rosso Award at the beginning of Campaign 21. And now my receiving this award as we successfully complete the campaign is especially gratifying. As you mark my success, it also marks the success of this extraordinary effort, and I am thrilled and so very grateful. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Georgie, and thank you for all the hard work that you do. Georgie and Holly Kernan took me on a tour recently of the new digs for KQED, and they are nothing short of spectacular, and she has a lot to do with that. And now, while it's important for individuals to set good fundraising examples, we want to encourage corporations to do so at a larger level as well. And to that end, I now present the Outstanding Corporate Grantmaker Award. This award is for a corporation or its foundation that displays a strong commitment to philanthropy through its financial support and its encouragement and motivation of others to take leadership roles in philanthropy and community involvement. And this year's award goes to Molly Stone's Markets. Molly Stone's was named after co-founder Mike Stone's mother, Molly, who worked in the grocery industry for over 2 decades and whose enthusiasm for making people feel good became the store's mission. Molly Stone's Markets works with local growers and brands to bring their customers high-quality products in every aisle. They also strive to strengthen communities by donating to local hospitals, food banks, schools, first responders, and various nonprofits in the community. That's through direct financial support, food, PPE, time volunteered, and customer match programs. And here to accept the award on behalf of Molly Stone's Markets is Mike Stone.
Hi, I'm Mike Stone, CEO of Molly Stone's Markets. We are a family-owned business locally devoted to our communities. It's important to us as a family to support our communities. Our mission is to make a difference in people's life through food. What that means is not only offering a great selection of quality and healthy products, but giving back to the community by donating to food banks, hospitals, and schools. Our focus has been in these 3 areas primarily because if we can help feed the needy, possibly save someone's life or improve their quality of life, and help educate or improve a student's learning, we have made a difference in one's life. The greatest feeling we have as a company is to make a donation that will make a difference in one's life. What greater meaning and purpose is there? As a company, this award recognizes us for our work and commitment we have as a core value at Molly Stone's Markets. Thank you, and we appreciate this award greatly.
Congratulations to everyone at Molly Stone's Markets. We hope you keep up the extraordinary work that you have done. And now for perhaps one of our most inspiring categories, the Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award recognizes service by young people ages 5 to 17 who demonstrate unparalleled commitment to their community through direct financial support, development of charitable programs, volunteering, and leadership in philanthropy. This year's award goes to the Amador Valley High School Student Leadership Committees and their Mr. Amador program. We don't often think of young people as philanthropists, but these students have created an event that motivates other youth to participate in fundraising for their community, setting them on a path for a lifetime of service. These young leaders truly show us that philanthropy can begin at any age. To accept the award on behalf of the Amador Valley High School Student Leadership Committee, please join me in welcoming Mia Hildebrand and Lauren Sowers.
Hi, my name is Mia Hildebrand.
And I am Lauren Sowers, and we are honored to accept the Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award on behalf of the Mr. Amador program and our wonderful students, staff, and community that has supported the program for the past 17 years.
Our program is made up of over 40 dedicated students annually, and 10 boys are chosen to participate in a comical male pageant in the culminating show at the end of each year. Tens of thousands of dollars are raised by our team and the boys each year, and everyone is hard at work to spread the word about the George Mark Children's House and all of the aspects of the pediatric palliative care facility. Located in San Leandro, California, the house allows for terminally ill children to be surrounded by their families in a homely environment, with all the necessary medical equipment the child needs to survive at no cost. Our goal is to give these families peace and the opportunity to embrace their time together.
With this award, we hope to encourage other young adults to go out in search of rewarding philanthropic opportunities. There is nothing like the feeling of knowing your actions have helped others in your community. Change starts with you, and we can confidently say that the lives of us all are changed for the better because of the George Mark Children's House. Everyone involved at the house has taught us the value of resilience, courage, and most importantly, compassion. Compassion is an action word with no boundaries, and we hope that everyone, no matter their age, will open up their eyes and hearts wider than ever before, using this new clarity to the advantage of people who need it most.
Last but certainly not least, we would like to extend our biggest thanks to Ken Summer, who has been by our program's side as our biggest fan for too many years to count. You embody traits of the house, and your benevolence is truly infinite.
We cannot thank you enough for believing in us all these years, and we will never forget the amazing memories created in the Mr. Amador program because of your consistent encouragement.
On behalf of the Mr. Amador program, we thank you all so much again for this award.
Congratulations once again to the amazing students of the Amador Valley High School Student Leadership Committee. We wish you the best of luck with the next endeavors of the Mr. Amador program. You are truly an inspiration for us all. Well, our next award is very special. The Vineyards Award celebrates an organization with an operating budget of less than $1 million that effectively addresses serious community problems. It does this through a passionate staff commitment and the innovative use of volunteers and community partnerships, showing us that it doesn't always require massive resources to create real change in the world. This year, the Vineyards Award goes to the New Breath Foundation. The foundation provides grants to frontline organizations while simultaneously providing leadership, support, and help with coordinating and organizing around causes related to racial justice and solidarity. Helmed by the formerly incarcerated community leader Eddie Zhang, the goal of the New Breath Foundation is to play a key role in educating and advocating philanthropic stakeholders to increase investment in community-grounded racial solidarity efforts. Since its release, Eddie has dedicated his life to serving the youth and communities of the greater San Francisco Bay Area. Here to accept this award on behalf of the organization is the founder, Eddie Zhang, and congratulations to you, Eddie.
Happy New Breath, everyone. My name is Eddie Zhang. I'm the president and founder of the New Breath Foundation. As someone who has directly impacted by mass incarceration and deportation, it's such an honor to be here to receive the Vineyards Award. The New Breath Foundation mobilized resources to support the marginalized Asian American and Pacific Islander communities who are impacted by mass incarceration, deportation, and violence. We started with $0, and in a short span of 3 years, we were able to become $1 million organization who is building power, capacity, and infrastructure for the marginalized AAPI community. Without the support from our individual donors, our friends in the community, and our philanthropic partners, we will not be able to have a seat at this philanthropic table. Again, thank you to our friends at the Association of Fundraising Professionals for this amazing award.
Congratulations again to Eddie and the New Breath Foundation. We applaud your work in transforming the world of philanthropy from the ground up. And this past year was a year of immeasurable loss. We'd like to take this moment to acknowledge those in our philanthropic community that passed away. We love them and they will be sorely missed. As we remember them, we pledge to carry the torch of their important work forward, and we thank them for their service to the community. This year's tributes will feature a musical selection titled Love is Letting Go by the beloved Bay Area choral ensemble Chanticleer.
There's no greater gift, but if to
but hopefully we won't forget. Love is letting go. Love is letting go. Thank you for joining me in that remembrance, and we send love and well wishes to all of their loved ones. Moving now into the second half of our program this evening, it's my extreme pleasure to present one of our most highly regarded awards, the AFP Golden Gate Chapter Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor is bestowed by the Board of Directors to individuals who have offered their community an entire lifetime of exceptional generosity. And the award this year is given to not one, but two outstanding individuals who have made tremendous contributions to philanthropy from different sides of the table. Our first honoree is Alvin H. Baum, Jr. Born and raised in the Chicago area, Al attended Harvard University, Harvard Law School, and later UC Berkeley. Al worked for the San Francisco-based Conservation and Development Commission, and then he had a private city planning firm. He served on several nonprofit boards, including the ACLU of Northern California, New Israel Fund, Jewish Family and Children's Service, Jewish Community Federation, Access Institute, Lambda Legal, the Horizons Foundation, and the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. Al passed away in March 2021 and is survived by his husband, Robert Holgate. Robert, we are so honored to have you join us today and accept the Lifetime Achievement Award on Alvin's behalf.
Hi, my name is Robert Holgate. I am the husband of Alvin Baum, Jr., the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award, which, if he were still alive, he passed away this year, I'm sure he would be absolutely thrilled. He really devoted his life in his later years to philanthropy, to helping others. And it's interesting how he got into it. As when he first came to the Bay Area, a good friend of his who had much less than he had, but was doing much more for others than Al was, pulled him aside and said, Al, I really kind of want to ask you a question if you're comfortable with this. He said, sure. And he said, why aren't you doing more? You have so much more than most of us. You have the ability to do more, but you're not. And I'd like to know if you've ever considered doing it. At that moment, he knew in his heart his friend was right. He knew that he was very fortunate and it was time for him to give back. So he really devoted his life to trying to help those who were less fortunate than he was. He started giving mainly to the LGBTQ plus community, and that was simply because he was part of it, and also there was a huge disparity in giving. He was also really concerned about the environment, extremely concerned in his later years. So quite a bit of his emphasis went there. And in the last few years, our prior president, Al was deeply worried. He shifted most of his giving when our prior president was in office to politics, because he could see how perilous it was for our democracy. He was one of the initial board members for Horizons Foundation. It's the first community foundation for the LGBTQ plus community. That was truly meaningful for him, and it's going to continue to be so for me. So thank you for this honor. It's truly, truly heartwarming, and I know Al would have been thrilled. And so I want to thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We wish Alvin could be here with us, but we celebrate him and his lifetime of achievements. And some organizations go above and beyond by inspiring, encouraging, and motivating nonprofits and grant makers alike, all while developing innovative approaches to philanthropy. The next award, the Outstanding Foundation or Grant-Making Organization Award, celebrates just that. This year's honoree is a local favorite. The Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, founded by Steph and Aisha Curry in 2019 to help improve the lives of kids and families in Oakland, the Bay Area, and the country. Eat, Learn, Play focuses on three vital pillars of a healthy childhood: nutrition, education, and physical activity. They focus on ending childhood hunger, ensuring students have access to quality education, and providing safe places for all children to play and be active. And accepting the award on behalf of the Eat, Learn, Play Foundation is the President and CEO, Chris Helfrich. Congratulations.
On behalf of Stephen and Aisha Curry and the team at the Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, I want to say thank you to AFP for this incredible award. We're honored and we're humbled. You know, when Stephen and Aisha began dreaming up Eat, Learn, Play several years ago, they wanted to create a foundation that could have a major impact on the lives of kids and families in our hometown of Oakland. And they wanted to focus on these three key areas, eat, learn, and play, that create a healthy, happy, and successful childhood. As a foundation, we pivoted right before COVID-19 to food security, realizing that hunger was going to be a major issue through the pandemic. And we are proud of the work that we've done, helping to distribute over 17 million meals to the community at a time of heightened food security. None of that work would be possible without the support of community partners and funding partners. And we're proud to have played a role in catalyzing the community around this important issue. But our foundation is still young. We've got a lot of big ambitions going forward and truly believe that our journey is just beginning. And so we encourage everyone to continue coming alongside of us to do this important work together. But for tonight, to AFP, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you to the Eat, Learn, Play Foundation for your invaluable work. And fundraising often requires help from those willing to donate their time for a cause. Volunteer leadership and the coordination of groups of volunteers in service to a campaign or cause can be a monumental task. The Outstanding Fundraising Volunteer Award recognizes someone who has demonstrated great leadership in coordinating volunteers for major fundraising projects for more than one nonprofit organization. This year's Outstanding Fundraising Volunteer Award goes to Bill Glenn. Bill has provided leadership for many organizations as board chair of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, of Citizens Funds, and currently of the Graduate Theological Union, as well as vice chair of KQED. An educator prior to his long career as a psychotherapist, he led Continuum, where he directed a successful capital campaign and was vice president for the San Francisco Foundation. He and his spouse, Scott Hafner, have chaired 2 additional campaigns for the Pacific School of Religion and recently a most successful endowment campaign, raising more than $125 million in testamentary gifts for Horizons Foundation. He is currently a trustee of the Morris K. Stillsaft Foundation in San Francisco. And he can add this to his very long list of awards. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bill Glenn.
Good evening. The genesis of my close to 50 years of raising money was the grueling and personally devastating AIDS epidemic. I was tasked with making a solicitation for the biggest gift that the AIDS Foundation, of which I was then chairing, would have ever made. And I went to see the donor and he agreed to make the gift. And then he told me this was my work to do. This is my responsibility. It was an important work. And somehow intuitively, I knew that was true. From AIDS to the queer community, to incarcerated men at San Quentin, to those who work for justice, to those working to end the scourge of sectarianism, as we do at the Graduate Theological Union, where I now am privileged to serve as the chairman of the Board of Trustees. The through line in all my work is the profound and unmet human needs that touch my soul. It's been a gift to me, this work, and it's changed my life. For someone up and coming in this work, what I would say is, don't think you can't do this. Let go of your fear and allow yourself to love the people you serve, and you will become a fundraiser. When I was called to say I would be receiving this award, I was bowled over. So very many men and women raise money every day to sustain the not-for-profit structure, without which I believe the Bay Area would collapse. I regard this award as both a tribute to the centrality of the LGBT community in our civic life and a testament to what one individual can do far beyond his or her own community. Thank you for recognizing my work, the work of many others, and for bestowing this really prestigious award on me tonight. I'm humbled.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for everything that you do for our communities. In the fundraising world, as everywhere, we are stronger when we work together. Those professionals who work as initiators or connectors, supporting creative efforts and developing philanthropic partnerships can be the glue that holds entire networks together. And thus we honor them with our next award, the Outstanding Foundation or Grant-Making Professional. And this year's honoree is Kathy Cha. Kathy Cha is the president and CEO of the Evelyn and Walter Haas Jr. Fund. And under her leadership, Haas Jr. is pursuing new ways to advance equality and justice so every person has opportunities to thrive and live life with dignity and hope. Kathy's approach to collaboration has helped spark wide-ranging social impact, including California's leadership among states in adopting pro-immigrant policies. She's a frequent public speaker and civic engagement, immigration, and innovative philanthropy talks, and was named one of the most influential women in Bay Area business in 2019. It's my great pleasure to welcome Kathy Cha.
Hello, I'm Kathy Cha, President and CEO of the Evelyn and Walter Haas Jr. Fund. The Haas Jr. Fund works to advance equality and justice so that every person can thrive and live life with dignity and hope. I am so honored to receive this award. Thank you. And I'm surprised Mona Chang and other community leaders nominated me for this, and I had no idea. The great group of nominators, all leaders that I respect very much, makes this award even more special. Thank you. In the past year, people across the country have seen racism and hate close up. There have been far too many Black lives lost by police murders, too many Latinos harmed and treated unfairly, too many trans people scared for their lives, and too many Asian Americans attacked every day. I'm reminded of the old saying that it's the darkest before the dawn. People in the Bay Area and beyond are speaking out and joining together across their differences to demand change, and that gives me hope. Thank you for all the social change work you're doing every single day and for working together to create a brighter tomorrow for all of us. Thank you, AFP, for this wonderful recognition.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and congratulations again on your award. And there are many people who may not work in fundraising, but who still have made significant and diverse contributions to the San Francisco Bay Area, all with great philanthropic spirit. We call them our Spirit of Philanthropy honorees. And this is the point in the program where we would like to acknowledge them and their contributions. Here are our 2021 Spirit of Philanthropy honorees. Alexandra Aquino Fite, sponsored by the East Bay Community Foundation. Aisha Barrow, sponsored by Glide Memorial Church. Matt Burler, sponsored by Save the Redwoods League. Terry Gamble Boyer, sponsored by Plowshares Fund. Jessica Brinza, sponsored by Planned Parenthood Federation of America Incorporated. Arthur Chan, sponsored by Chinese Hospital and Clinic. FedEx Cares, sponsored by George Mark Children's House. Bruce Francis, sponsored by the Arc, San Francisco. Friends of the Pleasant Hill Library, sponsored by My Philanthropy Team. Phil Ginsberg, sponsored by Rosalind Croman Swig. William Glenn, sponsored by Teresa Nelson and Associates. Allison Halpern, sponsored by 826 Valencia. Georgie Kelly, sponsored by KQED. Amanda McCarthy, sponsored by Community Action Marin. Anna Mock, sponsored by United Way Bay Area. Suzanne Moss, sponsored by Tim Whalen. Tesha McCord Poe, sponsored by CCS Fundraising. Flo Raskin, sponsored by Center for Elders Independence. Nisha Singh, sponsored by Preemptive Love. Gabriel Stricker, sponsored by Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Incorporated. John Wilner, sponsored by Glavin Jacobson, Incorporated. Dr. Jay Shu, sponsored by Fred Levin of the Shenson Foundation. To learn more about these individuals and organizations and their commitment and passion for philanthropic work, please consult the digital program book on this event website or the AFP National Philanthropy Day webpage. We've celebrated volunteers, connectors, foundations, corporations, and fundraising professionals. And now we celebrate someone, well, for simply being an outstanding philanthropist himself, which is, of course, the name of our next award. The Outstanding Philanthropist Award is presented to an individual or family with a record of exceptional generosity. Through their direct financial support, they have demonstrated outstanding civic and charitable responsibility and have encouraged others to take philanthropic leadership roles in their communities. It is an honor for me to present the 2021 award to Bruce Baden. As a philanthropist, Bruce is a critical thinker, a creative problem solver, and an advocate for personal enrichment. Following a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes at age 38, he co-founded the Braden Diabetes Center at Marin General Hospital. Bruce is dedicated to providing the same level of support and education for others. And that dedication is also reflected in serving on Marin Hospital's board for the past 11 years. He has also served on the board of the Smuin Contemporary Ballet for the past 15 years. Through both his personal and philanthropic endeavors, Bruce has demonstrated that the pursuit of a well-rounded life is ultimately the most rewarding. And it's my honor to welcome Bruce here today.
Hi, it's Bruce Braden here. I'd like to acknowledge that the Outstanding Philanthropist Award is quite unexpected and quite an honor. I've gotten into the philanthropic space about 20 years ago, primarily through Dr. Linda Gaudiani, who is my endocrinologist. I had sold a couple of companies and thought I would give some money to UCSF diabetes program since I've been a type 1 diabetic for 36 years. And she said, well, how about if we start a center in Marin County? And I said, well, that sounds good to me. And we started the Braden Diabetes Center. And as a matter of fact, I was talking with her yesterday afternoon about expanding it to a cardiometabolic center and doing other things. I also really enjoy ballet, and so I knew Michael Schmuin going back years, and the Schmuin Ballet has also been a favorite of mine for years. And I also have two other issues with Golden Gate University, where I went to school to get my MBA in taxation, and Stanford, where I support the Stanford Storytelling Project. And it's not about making up stories, it's about telling your own story. It's one of those wonderful things. I never thought where this was going. I just decided that this is what I wanted to do. As a small businessman my entire life, I've enjoyed getting involved in the businesses and really enjoy working with a really good group of people to bring medical care and the arts and professional organizations and helping out where I can. That's what I've always, or what I now really intend to do for the rest of my years. And I certainly hope that it makes a difference. I think it does. I've been told it does. And this is how I make my decisions, becoming involved in the organization and seeing then where I think I can make a difference.
Thank you, Bruce, for your many years of giving, and congratulations on receiving the Outstanding Philanthropist Award. And finally, it's my extreme pleasure to present the final award of the day, the second AFP Golden Gate Chapter Lifetime Achievement Award. Again, this honor is bestowed by the Board of Directors to individuals who have offered their community a lifetime of exceptional generosity, and this year's second Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Lois D. Domenico. Lois is the co-creator of, well, you all know about it, Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco Treat. A major San Francisco philanthropist, she has served on boards of Mills College, East Bay Community Foundation, the Oakland Ballet, and KQED. And in 1997, she was named Philanthropist of the Year by the Northern California chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Lois also served on the board of Girls Inc. of Alameda County. A yoga practitioner for 5 decades, Lois has always been active in what she calls hands-on philanthropy, including teaching yoga to middle school students at Northern Light School in Oakland. And now we are humbled and honored to hear from Lois D. Domenico, who has some words of wisdom that she would like to share with us. My friend, Lois D. Domenico.
Hi, I am Lois D. Domenico, and I'm truly honored to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from AFP in the San Francisco area. This means so much to me. My family are all excited, my friends are excited, and I'm even more excited and thankful and honored to receive this award. Thank you, everybody. One person in the block looked at me with a big smile, and he said, I'm not only giving you $100, I'm going to give you $500. And he had a big smile on his face. And I left there going home and saying to myself, he was so happy giving money. I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to raise money. And that's really what started it. So it was a long time ago. It was more than 50 years ago. Well, I believe in young girls who need help, totally believe in them. I believe in their mission, and it's wonderful to see these girls come to our building in downtown Oakland and survive, usually being the first ones in the family to go to college. And it's just very inspiring to work with young girls. But then let's start with KQED. That has been a wonderful mission in my life. When I first came to KQED in 1977, the average gift was $40 a year. And I came to the board and I said, I think we should ask donors to give $1,000 a year. And for that, we would have one dinner a year and invite them to the station. That grew from $40 a year. How much now? Millions and millions and millions of dollars are raised every year at KQED through the Signal Society. And that is one of the highlights of my life. To get young people involved, and we all talk about that over and over. Young people, a lot of them are too busy. Life, goes on in a different way. But there are so many beautiful philanthropists in the Bay Area who should pass the torch to younger people, teach them. It's a calling that is so beautiful, and I'd like to see more people picking up on philanthropy. I thank everyone at the AFP organization for nominating me for this wonderful Lifetime Achievement Award. It's really an honor, and I'm totally thankful to all of you.
Congratulations again, Lois, for this much-deserved recognition for a lifetime commitment to philanthropy. Well, this concludes our awards part of today's presentation. Now, let's hear once again from NPD co-chair Nicole Brown. Nicole?
Thank you, Michael, and congratulations again to all of our honorees. And thank you to all of you for joining us today on National Philanthropy Day. We look forward to seeing you again next year, hopefully in person. And have a great rest of your day.